The annual City of Birmingham Memorial Day service. My name is Bruce Miller. I am chairman of the Birmingham Memorial Day Committee and a member of the Oakland County Camp of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. Our fraternal organization exists to preserve and perpetuate the Grand Army of the Republic and their sacrifice in serving and saving the Union, and to ensure the proper observance of Memorial Day. Now, please turn your attention to the flag of the United States and to the colors. And now, if you will, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our invocation this morning will be delivered by ordained deacon and Stephen minister at the Kirk in the Hills, Terry Miller.
Gracious God, on this Memorial Day, we remember and give thanks for those who have given their lives in the service of our country. When the need was greatest, they stepped forward and did their duty to defend the freedoms that we enjoy and to win the same for others. Lord, you have taught us that no love is greater than that which gives itself for another. These honored dead gave the most precious gift they had, life itself, for loved ones, neighbors, and for us. Help us to honor their memory by being watchful caretakers of the freedoms for which they gave their lives. Though their names may fade with the passing of generations, may we never forget what they have done. Help us to be worthy of their sacrifice. Amen.
Bob Marcus is a retired United States Army Chief Warrant Officer. He's been an enlisted man, non-commissioned officer, and officer. He's had the privilege of serving for 34 years in the United States Army and reserve components. His assignments include long-range surveillance, military intelligence, psychological warfare, cavalry and infantry units to include the 82nd Airborne and the 1st Special Forces Group in various roles. His final assignment was the Dean of Strategic Languages for Europe and Africa. He's been awarded numerous military commendations to include the Bronze Star and the Combat Action Badge. He's been deployed multiple times for this great nation, and I have asked him to share a particular ceremony appropriate to this solemn day of remembrance. Bob?
To my left, your right, is the flag folding. The 13-fold procedure was common long before the more modern assigned meanings, which I will review as we fold the flag. The source and date of origin of the meanings for each fold is unknown. But for those who are privileged to participate or witness a formal flag folding ceremony, whether it be on Flag Day, today, Memorial Day, July the 4th, Veterans Day, or a military funeral, the 13 meanings are uplifting and sacred. The first fold of our flag is a symbol of life. The second fold is a symbol of our belief in the eternal life. The third fold, in honor and tribute of the veterans departing our ranks who gave a portion of his or her life for the defense of our country and the attainment of peace throughout the world. The fourth fold exemplifies our weaker nature as Americans trusting in God. The fifth fold is a tribute to the United States of America. The sixth fold is for our commitment to the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The seventh fold is a tribute to our armed forces, for it is through the armed forces that we protect our country and our flag against all enemies. The eighth fold is a tribute to all those servicemen and women who have fallen, that we might see the light of day. The eighth fold also honors motherhood, to the mothers who have sacrificed their children on our country's behalf. The ninth fold is a tribute to womanhood, for it has been through their faith, love, loyalty, and devotion that the character of men and women who have made this country great have been molded. The 10th fold is a tribute to the father. He too has given his sons and daughters for the defense of our country. The 11th fold represents in the eyes of our Jewish citizens the lower portion of the seal of King David and King Solomon, and glorifies the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The 12th fold, in the eyes of Christian citizens, represents an emblem of eternity and glorifies God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And the third and last fold, at this point when the flag is completely folded, the stars are uppermost, reminding us of our national motto, "In God We Trust." The brave Americans who sacrificed their lives to our great nation are the real heroes who have made real contributions and paid a real cost for their courageous actions and sacrifices. These are the heroes who tower above anything that may be produced in Hollywood or other heroes that we have today. Heroes who should inspire us more than anything we've ever seen in a book and or a movie. Thank you to Jack and Ralph for folding the flag.
We often take for granted the very things that deserve our gratitude. Our nation will remain the land of the free as long as we are the home of the brave. While on Memorial Day we honor those who've made the ultimate sacrifice for our country, we want to take this time to honor all those with us today who have worn the uniform of the United States. So I'd like to have all the veterans and first responders form to my left, your right now, please. I'm now going to troop the line, and I'd like each one of these gentlemen and ladies, if we have some, I'd like you to please give me your name and your branch of service.
Tom Legault, U.S. Navy.
Anthony Paredes, law enforcement.
David Buttigieg, law enforcement.
Bob DeLora, Army Infantry, Vietnam, Tettle Fence.
Tom Shipley, U.S. Navy.
Dave Talaga, firefighter, first responder.
Jack House, Marine Corps, Air Force, Desert Storm, Iraq, Vietnam.
Ralph Bond, Army.
Joe Schellenberg, U.S. 7th Army, Europe.
Jim Smallwood, Marine Corps, Vietnam.
Kirby Callum, Navy, Korea.
Jim Suhey, U.S. Army, Vietnam.
Joe King, United States Air Force, Vietnam.
Louis Braun, Air Force.
Dave Zimmer, U.S. Navy.
Mike Steingold, U.S. Army, Germany.
Chris James, Navy Seabees, Vietnam.
Ron Vandermolen, U.S. Army, Vietnam.
Andrea Anderson, U.S. Navy.
Al Sovey, Fire Department.
Jessica Rack, Fire Department.
Mark.
Veterans and first responders, thank you for your service. You may fall out. Our next speaker this morning is your mayor, Elaine McLean.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you all for being here on this solemn and important occasion. I'd like to welcome you to the city of Birmingham and our Shame Park. We gather to pay tribute to a nation of men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. We are here to honor, reflect, and remember. Please join me in recognizing our leaders in attendance. Not all could be here, but of course, Commissioner Therese Long, former mayor, Commissioner Baller, Commissioner Andrew Haig, and of course those who could not be with us, Commissioner Host, Mayor Pro Tem Schaefer, Anthony Long. We also appreciate and recognize those who served before us in city commission roles, mayors, as the gentleman to my left, Mr. DeLaura, who also quite clearly served his country with honor. Among others that we are missing today, we miss Robert Kenning, who recently passed at 100 years old. He served in the United States Marine Corps and attended this service every year in uniform. He was a revered public servant and Birmingham city manager. Every year that I have attended, I hold this folded flag. It was gifted to my family at the passing of my father, Nicholas Katona, exactly 5 years ago on Memorial Day. He arrived from Europe at age 12 alone to Ellis Island on a large ship called the Rex. He joined the U.S. Army as an immigrant only a few years later and fought for the U.S. He returned from overseas to become a U.S. citizen after the war was won. We join together today as a community. We have a bond of respect and undying appreciation for our fallen heroes and their families. We recognize the veterans among us who served with honor and continue to deserve our ongoing support and care. Today, as wreaths are placed by our service members whom we have lost, we share those memories and we commit to build a future worthy of respect for their sacrifice, peace, and a unified, just spirit. Thank you for attending and honoring all those we have lost.
Now to lead us in God Bless America, our soloist this morning is Andrea Anderson. And the normal PA people didn't show up, so I've got to walk this microphone over. You ready?
So he announced it already, so when it comes time for the full measure address, just say, this is the time to join in. Or you can even say it. Okay.
in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans, white with foam. Home, sweet home. Now it's time for you guys to join in. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans, white with foam. Bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet
Our next speaker is Dr. George Getchman, dentist, musician, bon vivant, raconteur, and Birmingham's leading historian. George is an authority on Birmingham's Greenwood Cemetery that contains over 3,000 graves, including Revolutionary War veterans. Thanks to George's efforts, Greenwood Cemetery has been designated a National Historical Site by the National Park Service. I'm sure he will tell you more about that story when he leads the cemetery tour after this service. Please welcome our friend, George Getchman.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. So my role today is to provide a little historical perspective to the Memorial Day in Birmingham and also some of our war veterans from the past. Birmingham has had Memorial Day ceremonies for well over 140 years. We don't know exactly in what year the first organized event occurred, but we do know that by the 1880s, there were special services at the Birmingham churches. The early civic ceremonies took place at our Greenwood Cemetery. The first photographs that exist of Birmingham's memorial ceremony were taken 120 years ago in 1900, and I believe Linda Buchanan has been passing that around and showing that around as the program began. In those early days, the townspeople would gather on Old Woodward and parade silently up the dirt road that always seemed to be either too dusty or too muddy, past Hugh Irving's old hardware store on the left side with his inventory spilling out onto the wood plank sidewalk, past Oakland Street and the beautiful frame houses that lined both sides of Woodward on the street, and then past the massive coal-fired electric generating plant where Booth Park is now located. The cemetery in 1900 was tidy, thanks to Martha Baldwin's Cemetery Association, but we would have been a little taken aback by the foot-high tall grass, which then was just considered normal, and the horses and buggies hitched up to the south fence. The ceremony in 1900 was centered around the Civil War monument, which is now over there, but then it was located near the cemetery's west entrance. The Civil War veterans stood dressed in their uniforms near the monument. A group of Army reservists from Pontiac stood at attention, and townspeople were scattered in the periphery. In 1900, Birmingham, the Memorial Day mostly meant remembering those men who had died during the Civil War. But there were also a number of veterans of the War of 1812 to be honored, since most of the first original landowners in Birmingham had been veterans of that war. Those veterans were offered land by the U.S. government at a bargain rate of $2 an acre, yet most of them refinanced to nearly $1.40 an acre. Each man purchased 160 acres. This total of 640 acres that these four men purchased, that now comprises all of central Birmingham, cost them about what now requires to hold a parking spot for a year. Greenwood Cemetery also had one Revolutionary War veteran, John Daniels, who had moved to Birmingham with his wife Betsy in their old age to live with sons who had carved farms out of the wilderness. In modern times, the members of the Piety Hill chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution place flags on veterans' graves at Greenwood for Memorial Day. There are now over 600 veterans interned there. In 1900, of course, there had been fewer wars, and there could not have been more than 30 veterans buried there at that time. But flags were also placed on the graves then by two Civil War veterans, Harrison Hamlin, who had a small farm about where the Methodist Church is now on Maple, and by Hiram Daniels, Jr., the grandson of the Revolutionary War veteran John Daniels. Hiram lived on a farm on the southwest corner of Pierce and Lincoln. His family had also owned a sawmill that was located on what is now Northland at the North Lawn at the north edge of what is now the Birmingham Country Club. Hiram Daniels was one of 27 young men from the Birmingham area who in July and August of 1862 went up to Pontiac and enlisted into the newly forming Michigan 22nd Volunteer Infantry Regiment. Many of these young men worked on family farms. During the Civil War, Oakland County led the country in wool production. Birmingham was just a little farming town then, and we even had a sheep supply store in the village. Not a very popular notion for today, but many men who enlisted had known each other in the little red brick schoolhouse that was where the Southfield Road ends at Maple. The men of the 22nd Regiment marched around Kentucky and Tennessee for nearly a year without firing a shot. Two of the 27 Birmingham men had died of disease by September of 1863. The regiment was part of a Union army that was following a Confederate army in northern Georgia. On September 18, 1863, a great battle began on the Chickamauga Creek in Georgia, and Hiram Daniels and his friends of the 22nd could hear the roar of battle off in the distance. As luck would have it, their division had been placed in reserve, several miles away, and it seemed to them that they might never experience the battle. On the third day of the battle, however, disaster was unfolding for the Union Army and defeat was imminent. The men realized that something was afoot when messengers raced on horseback into their peaceful camp, and soon bugles and drums summoned the men of the Michigan 22nd into formation. The regiment quickly formed into columns along with other regiments of the brigade, and they were rushed south toward the fighting. As they approached, the roar of battle became more threatening, and clouds of smoke, nearly like that of a forest fire, could be seen ahead. Hiram Daniels' regiment was rushed into a formation along with two Ohio regiments on a hillside, and their instructions were to hold this hill to the last man. Retreat was forbidden. What they were not told was that a decision had been made to save the Union Army by retreating it to the north, and this small contingent of 3 regiments was being sacrificed to keep the Confederates at bay during the retreat. Hiram Daniels and his friends from Birmingham carried out these orders and withstood repeated attempts of the Confederates to overrun their position. As darkness descended, their ammunition had given out, and their ranks were thinned by casualties. The 3 Union regiments could no longer resist. 4 of the Birmingham soldiers had been killed, 3 were wounded, and 8 were taken prisoner. One of the Birmingham prisoners was an officer and was separated from the others and was sent to a different camp. The 7 remaining prisoners, including Hiram Daniels, were sent to an old tobacco warehouse in Danville, Virginia, which became so overcrowded with prisoners that at night the men had to carefully arrange themselves into columns so that there would be room for them all to sleep on the cold floor. In a few months, over the winter in this place, 2 of the Birmingham boys, Omer Fall and Henry Lawless, died of disease. In February of 1864, the 5 surviving men of the 22nd were moved to a relatively new prison in Andersonville, Georgia. This prison on open ground was designed to hold 10,000 prisoners, but by the summer held over 30,000 men. Within a perimeter of tall wood stockades, there were no buildings, and the prisoners had to improvise shelters with tent fragments and blankets, and were exposed to all the extremes of weather. There was a small stream that in its natural state is barely a foot wide. The stream was dammed, and its water formed a dual purpose of sewer and drinking water. During the summer of 1864, 2 more of the Birmingham men died, James Grinley and Peter Lowes, both just 19 years old. Hiram Daniels, Charlie Miles, and Orville Drake remained, but Orville died of dysentery just 3 months prior to the end of the war. Hiram Daniels and his friend Charlie Miles were the only Birmingham men to survive Andersonville. Hiram Daniels, in his old age, went on a trip with his wife to Chickamauga battlefield and stood on Snodgrass Hill, where his regiment had made its last stand. He took his wife to the site of the Andersonville prison and located the spot where he and his Birmingham friends had erected a makeshift shelter. He got permission from the park manager to make a little memorial to place on that spot, and he walked to the adjoining National Cemetery and found the graves of his Birmingham friends. Hiram lived into his 70s. On Friday, September 21st, 1914, as he was walking across Maple, he jumped out of the way of an oncoming automobile and was hit by a horse and broke his hip. He died a few days later and is buried in Greenwood Cemetery, just a few feet away from his friend and fellow Andersonville survivor, Charles Miles. The site of the Andersonville prison is now a beautiful historic site in a quiet pastoral setting that contrasts with the horrible reality of a place where 13,000 prisoners died in a span of 14 months. A short distance up the path from the prison site is the National Cemetery, in which survivors of prisoners of war camps of any war may be buried. Peter Lowes, who lived on a farm on Adams Road, John Grimley, who lived in town, and Orville Drake, whose dad lived in a house at Pierce and Brown, are all buried in that cemetery. Following today's ceremony at 11:30, for anybody who's interested, the Friends of the Birmingham Museum will be leading a short tour of Greenwood Cemetery, which is on Oak Street, just a little bit east of North Old Woodward. Bring your wet walking shoes. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Very nice. And now, if the band is ready, it's time for... Did we bring the piccolo today? We got the piccolo? Okay. It's time for the Stars and Stripes Forever. Outstanding job as always. At this point in our service, we customarily read the necrology, the listing of Michiganians in the service who have passed away since Memorial Day last year. We always hope that there will be no names on the list, and unfortunately, we do have 2 Michigan fatalities to report since Memorial Day last year. U.S. Marine Sergeant Matthew K. Bilski passed away in December at the age of 23 during a training accident at Camp Pendleton. Bilski grew up in Royal Oak and attended Hazel Park High School, where he played football and baseball. Bilski is survived by his wife Lexi, whom he married in 2022. U.S. Marine Captain Miguel Nava passed away in February at the age of 28 during a helicopter training accident outside of San Diego. Captain Nava grew up in Comstock Park and attended Comstock Park High School, where he played soccer and football. He served on the student council and as a mentor to younger students across the school district. In 2013, he was nominated and accepted to the U.S. Naval Academy. He graduated from Annapolis in 2017, survived by his wife Ryan and son Luca. This Memorial Day, we remember those who have sacrificed their lives for freedom. Our thoughts and prayers are with all of those who are grieving. May we, as Abraham Lincoln said at Gettysburg, highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. Now, here in Cheyne Park, we have 2 monuments. One from the Civil War, honoring all who have served, and first, the Civil War Monument. The residents, and that's right over here, the residents of Bloomfield, Royal Oak, Southfield, and Troy Townships raised money to build the monument. It was completed and dedicated in 1869 and placed in the center of the intersection of Mill and Saginaw, now Maple and Old Woodward. It was surrounded by a low wrought iron fence with flowers carefully planted around the base. On each side of the obelisk are inscribed the names of the soldiers from each of the 4 townships who did not survive the war. In 1981, the monument was considered to be an impediment to traffic at the intersection, and it was moved to Greenwood Cemetery. There it became the focal point of Civil War soldiers' reunions and Memorial Day observances, when the custom was to have a parade that terminated at the cemetery with a service held at the monument. In 1964, to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the incorporation of Birmingham as a city, the monument was moved again to the lawn of the municipal building. In 2010, when Cheyne Park was redesigned, the monument was moved to its current location. The Oakland County Camp of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War will now place their memorial wreath. On November 11, 1952, the Birmingham High School Band opened the ceremony to dedicate the new Rotary Club memorial with the national anthem. The designer of the memorial, renowned local sculptor and World War II veteran Marshall Fredericks, helped to unveil the monument. The Birmingham War Memorial consists of a bronze casting of the Great Seal of the United States set on a base of Indiana limestone. The memorial stood outside the main entrance of Seaholm High School for 46 years. In May of 1999, it was moved to the north lawn of the Birmingham City Hall, and on May 26th, another ceremony was held to rededicate the memorial, with Marshall and Rosalind Fredericks in attendance. In 2010, when Cheyne Park was redesigned and expanded, the memorial was moved again to its current place of honor. The Birmingham Rotary Club will now place their memorial wreath at the monument. And now to conclude our ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this year's ceremony. We thank you for your attention and your attendance, and we hope to see you again next year. Have a great day.